Hello guys, Chris here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm going to be testing the Intel ARC A770 in Assassin's Creed Mirage. This one is the stock version of the card, the reference cooler. You can see it right there, glowing beautifully. And we are running it, of course, with the latest Intel drivers. You can see them over here in Tech Power-Ups GPU-Z, along with all of the GPU specs. Resizable bar is also enabled. It's a terrible idea to have this disabled with ARC GPUs, by the way. I actually tried it for a second before I started this video and I was getting like half the performance. Over on the left, we're pairing it with the i5-13600K at stock speeds, and if you notice, I only have the P cores enabled. That's 6 cores and 12 threads. I disabled the E cores because I found that fixes the stuttering issues that this game suffers from on Intel CPUs alone. So yeah, if you want to get rid of the very annoying and actually super unplayable stuttering, at least with the ARC A770, with the 3060 Ti yesterday, it wasn't too bad. I could handle it, but I tried it and I actually recorded the entire video on ARC, and it was stuttering like crazy, so much that I found it completely unplayable. And disabling the E-cores on the CPU fixes that completely, so I highly suggest you to do that until Ubisoft finds a fix for it. Finally, on the memory tab, we're using 32GB of 6000 MHz RAM, that's DDR5 in dual channel, and let's get right into it now, shall we? Alrighty, let's go over the settings first. I'm starting at 1080p resolution, and we're also going to test this one at 1440p and 4K using XeSS and, of course, at native resolution. We're using the high settings preset as well with ultra high environment textures because we have 16GB of VRAM on this ARC A770. TAA is set to native, and let's do this. Look at that frame time graph compared to what I showed you in the intro, my friends. And it's so much better just by disabling the freaking E-cores. It boggles my mind actually that this is an Intel sponsored title and they didn't fix the stuttering issues for CPUs with E-cores. Intel CPUs, because AMD CPUs don't have E-cores, you know, like how? It runs better on AMD CPUs, out of the box at least, or lower end Intel ones. Anyway, not a single stutter to speak of at the moment. That is super great. So if you must play this game right now, I really recommend you to go into your BIOS settings and disable the E-cores, because those ruin the experience, especially with the A770. It wasn't so bad with the 3060 Ti yesterday. Again, like that was actually a pretty decent experience. It didn't bother me too much, the amount of stuttering. It was more spaced out. But here with the A770, it was just unplayable in my opinion. That's why I am retesting it here and re-recording the entire video again, okay? Anyway, compared to the 3060 Ti's performance in terms of the average FPS experience here, it is not as great. I was expecting a better experience with the ARC A770, at least matching the RTX 3060 Ti, but unfortunately it's not doing that even on an Intel title. Alright, that's probably enough for 1080p native resolution testing here. It's a flawless experience, alright, it never drops from 60 frames per second, but again, the 3060 Ti did provide a better experience with like 115, 110 frames per second on average, and I did test the 3060 Ti in another area, of course, but the performance differences between there and right here in this big city are not really that big. So there's that, my friends. Oh, did I just die? Yes. Okay. That seemed like a small jump to make for an assassin, you know. Let's go ahead and enable that XeSS on quality first, and it gets a slightly higher frames per second. Like, we were seeing like 78 or so, and now it's up to like 81 in the same scenario, just when we pressed ESC to get out of the menu, you know. It looks really similar, guys. The upscalers in this game work really well. I mean, even FSR2 looks pretty good. Usually it's grainy and it delivers a noisy image in most titles, but in this game it looks insanely good. I would actually utilize upscalers even at 1080p resolution with lower end cards. Now, you don't need to do that, of course, with the ARC A770, and it did look very so slightly better without XeSS. I mean, mean, it might be a little bit softer here, but it's hard to tell, even on a 42-inch monitor. So on a smaller monitor at 1080p resolution, you know, a native 1080p 24-inch monitor, it will look basically the same. So yeah, I myself would just disable XeSS at 1080p resolution, because we were already seeing 60 plus all of the time, and it doesn't really improve the FPS by that much, you know. That's another thing that I noticed here with the ARC A770. The 1% lows are actually exactly the same as we saw previously, and the averages are very similar as well. And now we're dropping into the 60s still, even with the XeSS. XeSS. The XeSS, alright? It's hard to say that, actually. It's the most difficult upscaling to pronounce. Anyway, running around here, frame time is showing a few little spikes sometimes, but it's not really that big of an issue. Also, ground right here. Yeah, I'm noticing a little bit of shimmering on the grounds. I usually don't look at the ground, but yeah, it's like moving or something. Kind of heatwave-like, you know? A lot of people are saying that this game doesn't look very nice, you know, and I mean, it certainly doesn't look like a next-gen title whatsoever. It might actually look worse than Valhalla, or very close at least. Maybe it's because of the setting, you know, the desert and stuff. But yeah, it certainly doesn't look like a 2012 game like some people are claiming. Maybe on YouTube it looks a little bit less detailed, of course, but yeah, in my opinion it looks good enough. The lighting sometimes looks very good, and the performance is great, actually amazing. The fact that it ran on a freaking 1050 Ti at 1080p native resolution is awesome. And compared to everything out there in 2023, maybe it looks slightly worse than other games, but it performs 5 times better. So yeah, there's that. Let's go ahead and increase that resolution to 1440p now. All right, so here we have it. This is 1440p with TAA native and the 100% resolution scale. Of course, the resolution scale is always set to 100%. The frame time now is pretty weird, and it doesn't feel like 60 FPS. You can probably tell in the footage as well that it's a little bit choppy. Kind of reminds me of FSR3, and that's because of the disabling of the E-cores. Okay, guys? So sometimes this can happen whenever you change settings and so on, or if you start the game, sometimes this will happen. All you need to do is restart, and then it will be fixed. There we go. Back into it with a smooth frame time graph. It's as easy as that, my friends. Actually, this time it took a couple of attempts. I needed to restart a couple of times for it to be smooth like that, but it works, as you can see. I'm gonna start counting our FPS right now, and sunset is real still. It's very beautiful in my opinion, guys. I mean, you might say it looks like a 2010 title, but I don't care. It still looks good to me, honestly. Some textures still lack some detail and stuff like that. I'm not saying that the game is like a truly next-gen title in terms of visuals, because it isn't, okay? But it's good enough. It's all about being good-looking enough and enjoyable to take a look at and stuff, and still performing well. That's the optimization at work, you know? And of course, I wouldn't mind having maybe an extreme graphics preset with ray tracing and so on, for those of you who want the best visuals possible. But still, I prefer this to having all of that and super poor performance. We're seeing a few more stuttering issues right now compared to the 1080p results. Still not enough to lower our 1% lows, so it's kind of similar to what the RTX 3060 Ti did with the E-cores enabled in that video. A little bit better than that, actually, because it was more stuttery for sure on 3060 Ti video. But yeah, those frame times are showing up now at 1440p. Not super noticeable, but they're there. Also, VRAM utilization is very good. It's above 8 GB of VRAM, so if you have the 8 gig version of this card, don't use ultra high textures, but with the 16 GB, it's completely fine. Obviously, RAM usage is very good in this game as well. Like, I'm used to seeing 15, 16 gigabytes of RAM utilization these days in newer titles. Even like 18, 20 plus gigabytes of RAM, for example, in Hogwarts Legacy. And this one is here giving us 10 gigabytes of RAM usage. Anyway, 65 FPS average is what we get here with 1440p resolution. Let's go ahead and enable XeSS on quality. Hopefully that will keep it above 60 FPS the entire time. Again, not a major improvement by enabling the upscaler, But it works and it gives us slightly higher FPS and it looks basically the same as native resolution, especially at the higher 1440p res. I'm losing my voice a little bit, I'm sorry if it cracks and stuff. That's what happens if I record these videos back to back, but I really didn't want to post a stuttery mess that was the previous one. It was probably gonna be hard to watch as well. I do remember that Valhalla also had that issue. I'm not really sure if it was Valhalla, but I'm pretty sure it was. When that game came out on Intel CPUs, it also had some stuttering issues because of the E-cores and you needed to disable them. And it's happened in some other titles as well from other companies. But I thought that after so long and after a couple of generations with E-cores, they would have fixed it by now. Well, you know what? I'm gonna climb all of this and take a look at the entire city from above and synchronize this part of the map as well. Look at that. 70s. Looking at the entire city from above is not really that intensive, so we gotta go back there, yeah, towards the palace. Anyway, over here with a lot of vegetation around us, a lot of trees and stuff, it's only dropping into the higher 60s. Not a problem. I would definitely recommend these settings and this experience to ARC A770 users with 1440p monitors. Alright guys, now I bumped it up to 4K resolution and this time I didn't need to restart the game. It didn't make the frame time go crazy. High settings still with ultra high textures. Curious to see that VRAM utilization. And we're using no upscaler. Now, since I already tested the game previously with the stuttering issues, but the averages are still the same, I know what to expect here. Oh, people are taking baths here. That's very interesting. Well, children are taking baths here. Oh yeah, I totally forgot, but the water is very intensive in this game. You can see that it's dropping into the 30s at times. But yeah, it's performing reasonably well for what it is. You know, the A770 is not really a 4K gaming GPU, you could say. It does a great job in some titles, and this is certainly one of them. We're still on high settings after all. And yeah, it's still above 30 FPS all of the time. If you are after that console-like experience, you can have that. Absolutely. It's gonna be great. Oh my god. Still, why are you running after me? Why do you want to kill me so much? Oh, hello, Jack. Hello, Jack. Come over here. I'm gonna save you. Do not be scared. Everything is all right. They're not after you, Jack. They're after me for some reason. Okay. Yeah, this is great. It looks super detailed, super sharp as well because of 4K resolution on my 42-inch monitor. You know what? If you've seen my 1050 Ti video, you know that I've played for about like 2 hours playing through the game story and stuff with that GPU, and I was getting around these FPS on average, like 40 FPS with some drops into the 30s. More drops into the 30s than this one right here. And I still had fun even on lowest settings. So if I was playing through the story with the ARC A770 with this kind of performance, I would be very happy, okay? Again, if you care a lot about 60 FPS, and I am one of those people, I care a lot about 60 frames per second. I know it's not completely needed to have a good experience, but it's smooth, it's great. That's why I have high-end systems here, of course. Well, it's because of that and because they send me GPUs to test. But yeah, I do love myself some 60, 100, 120 frames per second experiences, even in single-player titles like this one. Unfortunately, with the ARC A770, it's playable, but it's not going to be 60 FPS. And I already know that XeSS won't really make that big of a difference, unfortunately, at 4K resolution. I actually tested it on quality, balance, and performance. I'm gonna switch it right away to performance, because even on performance, it is not enough to put it above 60 FPS the entire time. Sorry about the screen tearing that will happen right now, since we're close to 60 FPS. That happens because of the capture card. But yeah, as you can see over here, it's still dropping into the 50s. It's way smoother than 40-ish on average, for sure. It's closer to 60 after all. But yeah, it's not 60 plus. And with performance, XeSS, or any upscaling on performance, I would love to see 60 plus all of the time. But yeah, you can start noticing some shimmery edges, some noise, some pixelation, very minor pixelation actually, here and there. If you sit further away from the monitor, it's not going to be that noticeable, so that might be a good idea to do. But yeah, I prefer my things to be very sharp indeed and very crispy. So that's why I am gonna go ahead and select medium settings next with the textures on high over here. All right, set TAA to native, restart the game. It's actually getting the same FPS on medium settings as it did on high, guys. There is not that much of a difference here. Visuals still look pretty good, actually. Textures are still awesome, of course, because they're still on high, or very high, or ultra high, actually. Yeah. Lighting looks pretty good. Shadows as well. And maybe there's a little bit less detail on the lights or shadows and ambient occlusion and stuff, but it's not too big, and yeah, the FPS are the same. So down from here would be go to low settings, and that's way too low, so don't do that. Okay, guys? Anyway, let me try it with XeSS on performance now. Maybe the difference is enough to put us above 60 FPS most of the time now. All right. So if you're playing at 4K and you must have those 60 frames per second, this might be it. Although we're still not seeing a lot of vegetation, so it might drop there. Yeah, 59 right there, a little bit of a stutter as well. Also, I noticed that whenever I enable the upscalers, there's a little stutter that happens at the beginning. Okay. I didn't really want to do that. Also, yeah, motion blur is enabled. I forgot to disable that. It's not too distracting actually in this game, but I can definitely tell that it's enabled while moving and stuff. But yeah, there's a guy in the comment section that always dislikes my videos because I disable motion blur. Well, there you go, buddy. I actually have it enabled this time. No need to dislike. Okay, this is a pretty nice area. Very vibrant colors and stuff. A lot of vegetation around us, and it's not dropping from 60 frames per second. This might be the way to go if you're playing at 4K resolution. But if you're playing at a lower resolution, 1440p or 1080p, definitely go with the high settings with ultra high textures or max textures and have fun like that. Set some XeSS at 1440p resolution as well, so you never drop from 60, and you'll be all set. Don't forget to disable the E-cores as well if you're running a 13th or 12th gen CPU from Intel with E-cores. And it's going to be buttery smooth indeed. That's been it. Thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know your experiences down below with Assassin's Creed Mirage. And I'll catch you in the next one very soon. As always, love you all. Bye-bye.